Listener discretion is advised, as this story contains themes of psychological suspense and unsettling events. Imagine answering a 911 call to an address that, according to every map, every database, simply doesn't exist. Not on some forgotten dirt road in the middle of nowhere, but right in the heart of a perfectly ordinary suburban neighborhood. That's the chilling reality Michael Chun, a veteran EMT with over a decade of calls under his belt, faced one rain-slick Tuesday night. It was almost 2 a.m., the kind of hour where the world feels muted and still, save for the hum of the ambulance and the occasional distant siren. Michael and his partner Jessica Reyes were parked outside a dimly lit diner, nursing lukewarm coffee, waiting for the inevitable. Most calls at this hour were predictable. A fender bender, an elderly fall, maybe a late-night panic attack. Nothing that usually rattled an experienced crew like theirs. Then the radio crackled to life, pulling Michael from his half-doze. Unit 24, we have a Code 3 medical. Caller reports severe chest pain. Address: 1472 Willow Creek Lane. Repeat, 1472 Willow Creek Lane. Michael grabbed his notepad, the pen poised. 1472 Willow Creek, he mumbled, a flicker of recognition. Willow Creek was a quiet, tree-lined street known for its well-maintained homes and perfectly manicured lawns. He pictured the layout in his mind, the familiar turns. But then he paused, his pen hovering. Wait a second, dispatch. Did you say 1472 Willow Creek? Jessica, who had been scrolling on her phone, looked up, a frown creasing her brow. What's wrong with 1472, Mike? There isn't a 1472 Willow Creek, Michael stated, his voice flat. He'd run calls on that street countless times. The houses went up to 1468, then jumped straight to 1470, a large corner lot. There was number 1469, number 1471, and definitely number 1472. Just an empty lot, overgrown with brush, where the developer had run out of space or funding years ago. The dispatcher's voice came back, slightly irritated. That's the address we have, Unit 24. Caller ID confirmed. It's a landline, number appears local. The caller sounded distressed, very faint, kept repeating, please help me. I'm at 1472 Willow Creek. Michael exchanged a glance with Jessica, a silent question passing between them. He thumbed his radio. Dispatch, can you reconfirm the exact coordinates or cross-reference with any property records? Our system shows Willow Creek Lane ends at 1470. There was a beat of silence, then a sigh from the dispatcher. Stand by, Unit 24. A few excruciating moments later, she returned, her tone now tinged with an edge of confusion. Unit 24, you're right. Our mapping system. It's showing a discrepancy. There's number 1472 Willow Creek Lane, listed in the property records for that area. But the 911 call originated from that precise location. The GPS coordinates are clear. It's right where that vacant lot is supposed to be. A cold knot formed in Michael's stomach. A 911 call, a distressed voice, severe chest pain, and an address that simply didn't exist. Yet the call had come from somewhere. From a house that was, by all accounts, impossible. Jessica reached for the ignition, her eyes wide with a mix of apprehension and adrenaline. So do we go? She asked, her voice barely a whisper. Michael didn't hesitate. Yes, he said, pushing aside the creeping unease. We go. Because when someone calls for help, you answer, even if the address itself is a chilling mystery begging to be unraveled. And as they sped towards the impossible house at 1472 Willow Creek Lane, Michael couldn't shake the feeling that they weren't just responding to a medical emergency, but to an unwritten chapter of something truly terrifying. Something that defied logic, reason, and the very fabric of their reality. The sterile hum of the ambulance barely masked the frantic thumping in Michael's chest as they sped down the highway. Jessica, ever the pragmatist, gripped the steering wheel, her knuckles white, but her gaze occasionally flickered to the rearview mirror, meeting Michael's worried eyes. The dispatcher's voice, now a distant echo in their minds, had been too calm, too detached for the urgency of the situation. A male 40s unconscious, at an address that Michael's gut screamed was a phantom. Willow Creek Lane, Jessica murmured, her voice tight, as they exited the highway and turned onto a tree-lined avenue. Never heard of it. And I've worked this sector for 5 years. Michael nodded, checking the tablet mounted on the dash. The GPS displayed a route, but the street itself seemed to materialize on the digital map only after they were already on the connecting road. It was as if their navigation system was struggling to acknowledge its existence, only rendering it when absolutely necessary. Me neither. And the call details were sparse. No name, no callback number, just a house number and a vague symptom. Standard anonymous tip, maybe? Jessica offered, but her tone lacked conviction. Someone saw something, called it in, didn't want to get involved. Or someone couldn't get involved, Michael countered, a chill tracing its way down his spine despite the ambulance's heater. The way the dispatcher sounded, almost like she was reading from a script she didn't understand, or wasn't allowed to question. The avenue narrowed, the streetlights growing sparser, swallowed by the encroaching darkness of the surrounding woods. The air seemed to grow heavier, pressing in on them. They passed well-maintained suburban homes, their windows glowing with the warm light of evening, but as they delved deeper, the houses became more spread out, older, and eventually gave way to long stretches of unkempt forest. "This is it," Jessica said, her voice barely a whisper, as the GPS announced their arrival at Willow Creek Lane. But there was no street sign, just a narrow, unpaved track veering off to the left, barely visible amidst the dense undergrowth. It looked more like a deer trail than a residential road. Michael squinted, trying to make out any markers. Nothing. No street lamp, no reflective signpost. Just the black maw of the woods. "Are you sure?" Michael asked, his hand instinctively going to the radio, then hesitating. What would he even say? "Hey dispatch, your street doesn't exist, and my GPS is gaslighting me?" "GPS says it's Willow Creek," Jessica confirmed, her brow furrowed. She slowed the ambulance, the tires crunching on loose gravel as they cautiously turned onto the track. The branches of ancient oaks clawed at the sides of the vehicle, scraping against the metal with a sound like skeletal fingers. The track wound deeper into the woods, the canopy overhead so thick that even the faint moonlight struggled to penetrate. It was utterly silent, save for the hum of their engine and the occasional rustle of unseen creatures in the underbrush. There were no other houses, no driveways, no signs of human habitation. Just trees, darkness, and a growing sense of isolation. "This is wrong," Michael stated, his voice firm, breaking the oppressive silence. "There's no way 1472 is down here. This isn't even a proper road. It's a logging path at best." He pulled out his personal phone, opening a different mapping application, then cross-referencing it with the ambulance's internal GIS system, which usually provided detailed property lines and addresses. Both applications, after a moment of buffering, showed the same thing. Willow Creek Lane ended abruptly about a quarter-mile back, at the last suburban house they had passed. Beyond that, where they currently were, was simply marked as undeveloped forest land or private conservation area. There was number 1472 Willow Creek Lane. No street number, no parcel, no structure. "Jessica," Michael said, his voice dropping to a low, urgent tone. "It's not here. This address doesn't exist. Look." He held out his phone, its screen glowing with the stark reality of the blank map. Jessica glanced at it, her eyes widening, then back to the track ahead. Her grip on the wheel tightened further. "But the GPS, it's still showing us on Willow Creek Lane. And it says destination on left in about 50 feet. They continued forward, the ambulance's headlights cutting through the inky blackness. And then through a break in the trees, a faint outline appeared. A house. It stood starkly against the backdrop of the forest, an anomaly in every sense of the word. It wasn't a dilapidated shack, nor was it a sleek, modern dwelling. It was a two-story colonial, perfectly proportioned, with white siding and dark green shutters, a neatly paved driveway, and even a small manicured lawn. It looked utterly, impossibly normal, except for its location, and the absolute silence that surrounded it. No porch light, no light from any window, no car in the driveway. "No way," Michael breathed, his voice laced with disbelief. It's just there." Jessica slowly brought the ambulance to a halt at the edge of the driveway. The house number, illuminated faintly by their headlights, was indeed 1472. It was a standard black wrought iron numeral set against a white wooden plaque, just like any other house number in a normal suburban neighborhood. "Okay, this is officially beyond weird," Jessica said, her voice shaky. She turned off the engine, plunging them into an even deeper silence. The only sound now was the ticking of the cooling engine and the frantic beating of their own hearts. "My map still says this is undeveloped land." "Your map confirms it," But there's a house. Perfectly normal-looking house. With the exact address. Michael reached for the heavy trauma bag in the back. Stay alert. Something isn't right. At all. He slung the bag over his shoulder, the weight a small comfort in the face of the inexplicable. He grabbed the radio, flicked it on. Dispatch, this is Medic 1. We've arrived at 1472 Willow Creek Lane. Confirming current location. He waited, listening to the static. A moment later, the dispatcher's voice crackled through. Medic 1 dispatch. Your current coordinates place you in an undeveloped wooded area. Approximately 0.7 miles beyond the last known residential structure on Willow Creek Lane. Please confirm you are at the correct address for the medical emergency. The voice was even professional, but held a subtle undertone of confusion. Dispatch, we are at a standing structure, clearly marked 1472 Willow Creek Lane. It's a two-story colonial white siding. Requesting backup and confirmation of this property's existence on record. Over. Michael's voice was firm, but his gaze remained fixed on the house, scanning its windows for any sign of movement, any flicker of light. Another pause, longer this time. Then the dispatcher's voice, now with a distinct waver. Medic 1, our system shows no record of a standing structure at those coordinates, nor does it recognize a 1472 Willow Creek Lane beyond the initial residential zone. All records indicate undeveloped land. Are you certain you haven't taken a wrong turn, Medic 1? A cold dread seeped into Michael's bones. It wasn't just their personal maps. Even dispatch, with access to city and county databases, couldn't account for it. The house simply wasn't supposed to be here. Yet, it stood before them, solid and undeniably real. No, dispatch, we are not mistaken, Jessica interjected, her voice cutting through the static. The GPS led us directly here. We are looking at the house. It has the number. We need to assess the patient. Requesting immediate confirmation and additional resources. Over. Her usual composure was cracking, replaced by a growing urgency. The dispatcher's response was slow, hesitant. Understood, Medic 1. We are initiating a cross-reference with county property records and sending a patrol unit to your last confirmed map location. Proceed with extreme caution. We will update you as soon as we have any information. Dispatch clear. The radio went silent, leaving them alone once more with the impossible house. Extreme caution, Michael muttered, pushing open his door. The air outside was colder than inside the ambulance, carrying the scent of damp earth and pine. But there was another scent too, faint and almost imperceptible, like old dust and something metallic. They moved in tandem, their footsteps crunching softly on the gravel driveway. The house loomed larger as they approached, its perfect symmetry suddenly feeling unnatural. The windows were dark, like vacant eyes staring out into the oppressive night. There was no sound of a TV, no faint music, no hum of appliances. It was a tomb. Michael reached the front door, a heavy dark wood, with an ornate knocker shaped like a lion's head. He hesitated for a moment, then rapped sharply, the sound echoing unnervingly in the profound silence. No answer. He tried again, louder. EMT. Emergency services. We received a call. His voice sounded strangely hollow in the stillness. Still no response. Jessica, standing a step behind him, pulled out her flashlight, sweeping its beam across the porch and the front of the house. No forced entry, no signs of struggle. No cars. It's like no one's home. But the call was for an unconscious male. Michael tried the doorknob. It was unlocked. A shiver ran down his spine. Why would an unconscious man leave his door unlocked? Or was it someone else? He pushed the door open slowly, a faint creak disturbing the silence. The interior was shrouded in darkness, thick and absolute. The metallic scent was stronger now, mixed with something else. Something faintly sweet, like decaying flowers. Hello, Michael called out, his voice wary, taking a step inside. Jessica followed, her flashlight beam piercing the gloom. The entryway was grander than expected for a house in the middle of nowhere. A sweeping staircase dominated the space, leading up into the darkness. To their left, a formal living room shrouded in shadow. To their right, a dining room. Everything was meticulously clean, draped in what looked like white sheets, as if the occupants had simply vanished years ago, leaving everything behind. Yet there was no dust, no cobwebs. It was unnervingly pristine. This is too clean, Jessica whispered, her flashlight beam dancing across the veiled furniture. Like a museum, or a house that's been staged for sale, but never actually lived in. Michael's eyes scanned the floor. There, just beyond the threshold, a faint dark stain on the pristine hardwood. Not large, but distinct. He knelt, touching it with a gloved finger. It was dry, almost powdery, but the color a deep rusty red. He straightened up, his heart now thundering against his ribs. "Jessica, call dispatch again. Tell them we're inside. And tell them I think we just found the patient. Or at least where he was." The house, which shouldn't exist, was now not only real but held an unsettling secret. A silent testament to a presence that had been here, and perhaps still was. The air grew colder and a faint, almost imperceptible whisper seemed to drift from the shadows at the top of the grand staircase, beckoning them deeper into the impossible dwelling. The air grew colder and a faint, almost imperceptible whisper seemed to drift from the shadows at the top of the grand staircase, beckoning them deeper into the impossible dwelling. Michael's hand instinctively went to the holster at his hip, though he knew his sidearm was little comfort against whatever ethereal force now seemed to be at play. Jessica, ever practical, pulled her flashlight from her belt, its beam cutting a stark path through the gloom that deepened with every step they hadn't yet taken. "Did you hear that?" Jessica's voice was barely above a whisper herself, her eyes darting from the shadowed ceiling to the intricate, dust-laden newel post. Michael nodded slowly, his gaze fixed on the top of the stairs. "Yeah," sounded like a sigh, or a word I couldn't quite catch. He paused, listening intently. The house was silent again, save for the frantic thumping of his own heart. "This is insane, Jess. We're in a place that doesn't exist and it's talking to us. Or we're both extremely tired and hallucinating," she countered, though her grip on the flashlight tightened, betraying her own unease. "But if we're hallucinating the same thing, that's a whole other kind of problem." She took a deep breath. "What's the protocol for a haunted house call?" Michael managed a weak, humorless chuckle. Dispatch didn't cover that in basic training. He looked around the vast, silent foyer again. The silence wasn't empty. It felt pregnant with anticipation, like the air before a storm. "We still have a patient to find, right? That's what we're here for. A patient who called from a house that doesn't exist," Jessica finished, shaking her head. "And who hasn't made a sound since we got here. No cries for help, no response to our calls. Just this." She gestured vaguely towards the staircase. "What if this is a trap? Then we're already in it," Michael said, a grim resolve hardening his features. "We can't just turn around. Not when someone might be in trouble. Besides," he admitted, his voice dropping, "I have to know, don't you?" Jessica hesitated, her flashlight beam dancing across the ornate banister. The wood, dark with age, seemed to absorb the light, revealing nothing but deeper shadows. "Yeah," she finally conceded, her voice a little shaky. "Yeah, I do. But we stick together. And we're careful. Very careful." With a shared glance, a silent pact of professional duty warring with profound apprehension, they began their ascent. Each step on the grand staircase was a deliberate, cautious movement. The wood groaned under their weight, a sound that echoed disproportionately in the cavernous space. Dust motes, disturbed by their passage, danced in the anemic light filtering through the unseen windows and the narrow beam of Jessica's flashlight. The air grew progressively colder with each step upwards, a frigid, unnatural chill that seemed to seep into their bones. It wasn't the damp cold of an abandoned building. It was a dry, piercing cold, as if the very warmth of life had been siphoned from the atmosphere. Michael could see his own breath misting faintly in front of him, a stark visual reminder of the impossible temperature. Halfway up they paused. The whisper came again, clearer this time, a multi-layered sound that seemed to emanate from everywhere and nowhere at once. It wasn't a single voice, but a chorus, like dry leaves rustling in a forgotten wind, or distant voices murmuring just beyond the edge of comprehension. It was a sound that tugged at the periphery of their hearing, almost a melody, almost words, but always just out of reach. "It's inviting us," Jessica breathed, her eyes wide, reflecting the flashlight's beam like polished stones. Her hand reached out, gripping Michael's arm tightly. "Can you feel that? It's like a pull." Michael could feel it, a subtle, almost magnetic draw urging them onward, higher. It was a sensation both terrifying and undeniably compelling. It was the siren song of the unknown, promising answers or perhaps only deeper mysteries. They continued, their boots heavy on the creaking stairs. The banister, when Michael touched it, felt strangely smooth, despite its apparent age and the layers of dust. It was as if it had been maintained, even polished, by unseen hands. Finally, they reached the top landing. It opened into a wide central hallway stretching in both directions, lined with numerous closed doors. The oppressive darkness here was almost absolute, the faint natural light from the foyer below barely making it this far. Jessica swept her flashlight beam along the hallway, revealing ornate wallpaper peeling in places, its once vibrant patterns now faded into a ghostly tapestry of muted colors. Cobwebs, thick and heavy, draped like forgotten curtains from the ceiling corners. "Okay," Michael whispered, his voice hoarse. "Which way?" The whisper returned, stronger now, seeming to coalesce from the left side of the hallway. It was no longer a general murmur but a distinct, albeit still unintelligible sound, drawing them with an undeniable force. "Left," Jessica said, her voice firm despite the tremor in her hands. "It's coming from that way." They moved slowly, methodically, their flashlights cutting twin arcs through the inky blackness. Each door they passed was identical, heavy, dark wood with tarnished brass doorknobs. There were no numbers, no names, no distinguishing features. The sheer number of doors was unsettling, suggesting a house far larger than what could possibly fit within the confines of the non-existent property line. As they reached the third door on the left, the whispering intensified, seeming to seep from beneath the gap at its base. It was no longer just a sound but a sensation, a vibration in the air that prickled their skin. Michael reached for the doorknob. It was cold, colder than the surrounding air, with a distinct metallic chill that made him flinch slightly. He twisted it slowly. To his surprise, it turned with a soft click. The door, heavy and resistant, gave way with a long, drawn-out groan, revealing an even deeper blackness within. Jessica's flashlight beam pierced the void, revealing what appeared to be a bedroom. It was large, dominated by a four-poster bed draped in heavy, dust-covered velvet. The air in the room was stagnant, thick with the scent of decay and something else, something cloying and sweet, like dried potpourri gone wrong. "Hello," Michael called out, his voice swallowed by the oppressive silence that followed. There was no response, only the faint echo of his own words. They stepped inside, their boots sinking slightly into a thick, grimy carpet. The room was a tableau of forgotten elegance. A dressing table stood against one wall, its mirror obscured by a film of dust so thick it rendered any reflection impossible. On a bedside table, a half-empty glass of water stood next to a small leather-bound book and a pair of spectacles. It looked as though someone had simply walked away mid-sentence, mid-thought years ago. Jessica moved towards the bedside table, her flashlight beam fixed on the items. "Look at this," she murmured, her voice filled with a strange awe. She carefully picked up the book. Its cover was worn, the gold lettering faded, but she could just make out the title, The Chronos Anomaly. "Chronos like time?" Michael questioned, peering over her shoulder. "Yeah," she confirmed, her thumb brushing over the brittle pages. "And anomaly, a deviation from the norm." Her eyes narrowed as she opened the book. The pages were filled with elegant, looping handwriting, but what truly caught their attention wasn't the script itself, but the dates. Jessica's flashlight beam settled on an entry. October 27, 1903. She flipped a few pages. November 12, 1903. She flipped to the back. The last entry, December 31, 1903. She looked up at Michael, her face pale. "Michael, this book is over 100 years old, and it looks like someone was reading it last night." She pointed to a faint indentation on the page, as if a finger had been holding its place. Michael felt a cold dread seep into his stomach. That's not possible. "That's Jess. This place is covered in it. That book should be brittle, crumbling." He reached out, carefully touching the page she indicated. The paper felt supple, almost warm despite the icy air. Then, his eyes caught something else on the bedside table, half hidden beneath the book. It was a small ornate silver locket, its chain broken. Jessica carefully nudged it with her finger, and it opened with a soft click. Inside, on one side, was a faded photograph of a young woman with kind eyes and a faint, knowing smile. On the other side, meticulously engraved, were two letters, M, and beneath them a date, December 31, 1903, the same date as the last entry in the book. A sudden sharp creak from the hallway outside made them both jump. their heads whipping towards the open door. The whisper was back, closer, more insistent, no longer from the left, but now seeming to drift from the right, further down the impossibly long corridor. It sounded like a woman's voice pleading, filled with an ancient sorrow. "Our patient," Jessica breathed, her voice barely audible. "EM? Could it be her?" Michael felt a chill that had nothing to do with the temperature. But 100 years ago? "Jessica, this is beyond anything, beyond logic." He looked from the locket to the book, then back to the open door, where the mournful whisper seemed to be growing more desperate. The house was playing a cruel, impossible game, dangling clues from a century past, yet calling them to a present emergency. He knew with a certainty that settled deep in his bones that they were no longer just searching for a patient. They were now entangled in a mystery that transcended time itself, a secret buried within these impossible walls, waiting for someone to finally listen. And the house, or whatever entity resided within it, was guiding them, step by terrifying step, into its heart. The whisper intensified, a mournful, drawn-out sound that pulled at their very souls, beckoning them further into the labyrinth of the past, towards a new, terrifying revelation. The whisper intensified, a mournful, drawn-out sound that pulled at their very souls, beckoning them further into the labyrinth of the past, towards a new, terrifying revelation. Michael and Jessica, their flashlights cutting through the thick, oppressive darkness, felt an almost physical tug. It wasn't just a sound, it was a presence, guiding them deeper into the forgotten mansion. The air grew heavy, thick with the scent of decay and something else, something metallic and faintly sweet, like old blood and wilting flowers. Every creak of the floorboards beneath their feet echoed like a gunshot in the profound silence that otherwise enveloped the house, a silence so complete it felt unnatural, as if the very air refused to move. They pushed past a heavy velvet curtain, rotting at the edges, that revealed a grand sweeping staircase, its banister intricately carved but now covered in decades of dust and cobwebs. The whisper seemed to emanate from above, a soft, almost melodic hum that was both alluring and deeply unsettling. Michael hesitated, his hand instinctively going to the small, worn crucifix he always wore beneath his uniform. He wasn't a deeply religious man, not in the traditional sense, but in moments like these, he found himself reaching for anything that offered a semblance of protection. Jessica, however, felt a strange compulsion, an instinct overriding her fear. This wasn't just a job anymore. It was an unfolding mystery that demanded their presence, their understanding. "Upstairs," Jessica murmured, her voice barely a breath, her gaze fixed on the shadowy landing above. "It's coming from upstairs." Michael nodded, his jaw tight. He knew she was right. Every fiber of his being screamed at him to turn back, to leave this place to its ghosts and its secrets, but the same powerful, unseen force that had drawn them here now compelled them forward. They ascended the creaking stairs, each step a testament to the house's age and neglect. The wood groaned under their weight, protesting their intrusion, and the dust motes danced in the flashlight beams like tiny, agitated spirits. At the top of the stairs, a long, narrow hallway stretched before them, lined with closed doors, all identical, all equally ominous. The whisper was now clearer, a delicate, almost childish hum, weaving through the air, seeming to come from behind the third door on the left. It sounded like a lullaby, ancient and fragile, sung by a voice steeped in endless sorrow. The contrast between the innocent melody and the decaying house sent a shiver down Michael's spine that had nothing to do with the chill in the air. As they approached the door, the air around them grew noticeably colder, a sharp, biting cold that seeped into their bones despite their thick uniforms. Michael reached for the doorknob, his gloved hand hesitating for a moment. It was made of tarnished brass, cold and unyielding beneath his touch. He twisted it slowly, the mechanism groaning in protest, and pushed the door open. Inside, the room was bathed in a faint ethereal glow, not from an external light source, but from some inexplicable luminescence within the dust-filled air itself. It was a child's room, or what had once been a child's room. A small four-poster crib stood against one wall, its white paint peeling, the mattress within a mere skeletal frame. A rocking horse, its paint chipped and faded, stood sentinel in the center of the room, its glass eyes staring blankly into the decaying emptiness. Toys long forgotten lay scattered on the floor, covered in a thick blanket of dust. A porcelain doll with a cracked face, a wooden train set, building blocks spelling out half-formed words. The whisper, now undeniable, seemed to emanate directly from a small ornate wooden chest sitting on a low dresser against the far wall. It was intricately carved, depicting scenes of fairies and woodland creatures, but its beauty was marred by time and neglect. Michael and Jessica moved slowly, cautiously, their boots crunching softly on the debris-strewn floor. The lullaby, the mournful hum, grew stronger, clearer, as if the chest itself was breathing it into the silent room. Jessica reached the dresser first, her hand hovering over the chest. It was old antique, clearly a family heirloom. As her fingers brushed against its surface, the whisper peaked, a sustained, heart-wrenching note of pure grief. She gently lifted the lid. Inside, nestled on a bed of faded silk, was a small tarnished silver locket. Beside it, a delicate hand-stitched doll, no bigger than Jessica's palm, its button eyes seeming to gaze up at them with a profound sadness. Around the doll's neck, a tiny, intricately folded piece of parchment was tied with a threadbare ribbon. Jessica carefully picked up the parchment, her fingers trembling slightly. The paper was brittle with age, threatening to disintegrate at her touch. She unfolded it with painstaking care. The handwriting, faded but still legible, was a delicate, looping script. It read, "To my dearest Eleanor, my sweet girl, my brave little star, may this music box always play your favorite tune. Never forget how much we loved you. Our precious angel lost too soon. October 12th, 1957. A date, a name, Eleanor. The year 1957. The words hung in the air, heavy with unspoken tragedy. Michael felt a cold dread seep into his soul. This wasn't just an abandoned house, it was a tomb, a memorial to a child lost decades ago. The whisper, the lullaby, suddenly made horrifying sense. It was the echo of a mother's grief, a child's lingering spirit. As Jessica finished reading, a faint, almost imperceptible sound emanated from the music box itself. Without anyone touching it, the mechanism whirred to life, a ghostly, tinkling melody filling the room. It was a simple tune, innocent and childlike, yet infused with an unbearable sorrow. It was the very lullaby they had been hearing. Then, as the first few notes of the music box faded, the air in the room shifted. What had been a cold, heavy silence was now replaced by an almost suffocating pressure. The faint luminescence in the air intensified, swirling around them like a phantom mist. A new sound, distinct from the music box, began to emerge, a soft, rhythmic creaking. It was the rocking horse. Slowly, almost imperceptibly at first, then with increasing momentum, the wooden horse began to rock back and forth, its chipped paint gleaming faintly in the ethereal glow. Michael and Jessica exchanged a terrified glance. No wind, no movement from them, nothing could explain this. The room was sealed, undisturbed for decades. The rocking horse continued its silent, rhythmic motion, a macabre dance in the ghost light. And then from the crib, a faint indentation began to form on the skeletal mattress, as if a small, unseen weight had settled upon it. A tiny, almost imperceptible sigh, a sound of profound loneliness, drifted from the direction of the crib, chilling them to the bone. "Michael," Jessica whispered, her voice barely audible, her eyes wide with terror. "We need to go. Now." But before Michael could react, before they could even turn to flee, the door to the child's room, which they had left ajar, slowly, deliberately began to swing shut. With a soft click, it latched, plunging them into near-total darkness, leaving only the faint, swirling glow, the spectral lullaby of the music box, and the rhythmic creaking of the rocking horse to illuminate their horrifying realization that they were no longer alone, and they were no longer in control. The house had finally claimed them, drawing them into the heart of its mournful secret, and the presence of Eleanor, the child lost too soon, was now undeniably, terrifyingly real. The air in the house grew heavy, thick with a sorrow that wasn't their own, a cold that seeped into their bones, independent of the night outside. Michael and Sarah stood frozen, their eyes wide, the unspoken terror between them a palpable thing. The realization that they were no longer simply visitors, but captives within a living, breathing memorial of grief, hit them with the force of a physical blow. The faint, almost imperceptible whisper they'd heard before now seemed to coalesce, a fragile, mournful sound, like a child's sob carried on a phantom breeze. They were in Eleanor's domain, and the house, her keeper, had sealed its doors. Michael, his hand instinctively gripping Sarah's arm, tried to pull her towards the front door, the one they had entered through, the one that now felt miles away, obscured by an unseen force. but the ground beneath them felt strangely resistant, as if the very floorboards were holding them in place. He tugged harder, his breath catching in his throat, and Sarah stumbled, not forward but sideways, bumping into a tall, antique grandfather clock that stood silent and still in the dim hallway. Its pendulum hung motionless, yet a faint metallic click echoed through the silence, followed by a soft, almost imperceptible tick. It was a sound that hadn't been there moments before, a sound that spoke of time now moving but perhaps not in their favor. A shiver ran down Sarah's spine. "Michael," she whispered, her voice barely audible. It's getting colder." A visible mist, faint and ephemeral, seemed to curl around their ankles, clinging to the worn Persian rug. The air carried the faint, sweet scent of lilacs, a smell completely out of place in a dusty, long-abandoned house. It was a child's scent, a memory of spring, overlaid with the musty odor of decay. They looked at each other, their shared fear a silent scream. The walls around them seemed to ripple, not physically, but as if the very fabric of reality within the house was shifting. The paintings on the walls, once obscured by shadows, now seemed to glow with a faint inner light, revealing portraits of stern-faced men and women from a bygone era, their eyes following Michael and Sarah with an unnerving intensity. They were watchers, silent witnesses to the house's enduring tragedy. Michael finally found his voice, a strained whisper. "We have to find a way out. This isn't real." But even as he said the words, he knew they were a desperate lie. This was terrifyingly real. He pulled out his phone again, the screen a beacon of light in the gloom, but it still showed no service. Not even an SOS signal. It was as if the house existed in a pocket dimension, cut off from the world they knew. They began to move slowly, cautiously, their footsteps muffled by the deepening stillness. The layout of the house, which had seemed straightforward moments ago, now felt disorienting. Every turn led to a corridor that looked subtly different. Every room felt like a variation of the last, a maze constructed of memory and sorrow. They passed what appeared to be a formal dining room, the table set for an invisible feast, antique china gleaming faintly in the near darkness. A single small teacup, intricately painted with tiny bluebirds, sat slightly askew on a saucer, as if a small hand had just placed it there. Sarah stopped, her gaze fixed on the teacup. "Eleanor," she breathed, the name a soft, reverent whisper. She liked bluebirds. The words seemed to conjure something. A faint tremor ran through the house. A distant, almost imperceptible giggle, innocent yet chilling in its context, echoed from somewhere deeper within the structure. It was a child's laugh, full of joy and mischief, a stark contrast to the overwhelming sadness that permeated everything else. Michael felt a prickle on the back of his neck. That's not possible. His logical mind, trained in the brutal realities of emergency medicine, struggled to reconcile what he was seeing and hearing with any known scientific principle. But the evidence of his senses was undeniable. The house was alive with a spectral presence. They found themselves drawn towards a grand staircase, its balusters intricately carved, leading up into an even deeper shadow. A faint ethereal glow emanated from the landing above, a soft, inviting light that belied the growing sense of dread. It was a lure, a siren song for the lost. "We have to go up," Sarah said, her voice surprisingly firm, a strange resolve hardening her features. "She's up there." "Eleanor." Michael hesitated. Every instinct screamed at him to find an exit, to run from this impossible place. But something in Sarah's eyes, a blend of fear and profound empathy, told him that ignoring this call was no longer an option. They weren't just trying to escape anymore. They were being pulled into the very heart of the mystery. As they ascended the creaking stairs, the air grew noticeably colder, the lilac scent stronger, almost cloying. The light above them flickered, revealing glimpses of a hallway lined with closed doors, each one a potential secret. From behind one of these doors, they heard it again, the soft, innocent giggle, this time followed by the gentle thud of what sounded like a ball bouncing. Michael's heart hammered against his ribs. This wasn't just a residual haunting. It felt active, responsive. They reached the landing and the light grew steadier, revealing a long corridor. At the very end, a door stood ajar, a soft, warm glow spilling out from within. It was the only light in the entire upper floor, drawing them in like moths to a flame. They walked towards it, their footsteps unnaturally loud in the silence. As they approached, they could make out shapes within the room. A small four-poster bed, a rocking horse silhouetted against a window, and a child's toy chest. This was Eleanor's room. Pushing the door open fully, they stepped inside. The room was bathed in a soft, golden light, emanating not from any visible fixture, but from the very air itself. It was spotlessly clean, as if time had not touched it. A small porcelain doll with wide blue eyes sat propped up on the bed, dressed in a faded lace gown. On the floor near the rocking horse lay a child's wooden alphabet blocks, scattered as if in play. One block, larger than the others, stood out. It had a single crudely carved letter on it. But it was the small, ornately carved wooden rocking horse that truly captured their attention. It swayed gently, almost imperceptibly, as if someone had just dismounted from it. And on its saddle, carefully placed, was a small leather-bound journal. Michael approached it, his hand trembling as he reached out. The leather was surprisingly supple, not brittle with age. He opened it carefully, the pages crisp despite their evident antiquity. The handwriting inside was neat, elegant, clearly an adult script. It was a diary, and the first entry was dated over a century ago. August 14, 1912. The doctor says Eleanor is not improving. Her cough worsens with each passing day. My heart aches to see her so frail. This house, once filled with her laughter, now echoes with her wheezing breath. My husband, Thomas, tries to be strong, but I see the fear in his eyes. Our little bird, our Eleanor, is fading. Sarah gasped, her hand flying to her mouth. The mournful secret, the child lost too soon, was unfolding before their eyes. This wasn't just a house, it was a mausoleum of memory, a place where a mother's grief had solidified, trapping not just a spirit, but perhaps even time itself. Michael turned the page, his eyes scanning quickly. The entries grew more desperate, charting Eleanor's decline. Each word was a fresh stab of pain, a mother's anguish pouring onto the page. September 1st, 1912. She asked for her bluebird teacup today, drank only a few sips. She spoke of flying away like the birds in her cup. My little one, so innocent, so brave. Thomas has started building a small, hidden room in the cellar. He says it's for storage, but I know it's because he cannot bear the thought of what is to come. He wants to keep her with us always. A chill, colder than any they had felt before, swept through the room, extinguishing the golden light. The porcelain doll on the bed seemed to turn its head slightly, its wide blue eyes now fixed directly on them. The rocking horse stopped swaying. The giggling stopped. The silence that followed was absolute, suffocating. They were no longer just reading a diary. They were in the story, standing at the precipice of Eleanor's final moments, privy to a desperation that had twisted the very fabric of this house. The hidden room in the cellar. Thomas wanted to keep her with them always. The implication hung in the air, a horrifying, unspoken question. What exactly had Thomas done to keep his daughter with them? And what did that mean for Michael and Sarah, now trapped within the eternal echo of that desperate act? The house had shown them Eleanor's sorrow, but now it was about to reveal the unspeakable lengths to which a father's grief had driven him. A secret far darker and more profound than they could have ever imagined. The house had shown them Eleanor's sorrow, but now it was about to reveal the unspeakable lengths to which a father's grief had driven him. A secret far darker and more profound than they could have ever imagined. Michael and Jessica stood frozen in the hallway, the chilling echo of the spectral lullaby still vibrating in the very air around them. The house, they now understood, was not merely a vessel of memory, but an active participant, a living monument to a family's tragedy. But monuments are static. This place felt hungry. It had shown them Eleanor's final moments, the crushing weight of her despair. But what about David, her father? What did a man do when faced with such an unbearable loss, especially when that man had unknowingly inherited a property that defied the very laws of physics? They moved cautiously, drawn by an invisible current, deeper into the house's labyrinthine corridors. The layout seemed to shift subtly around them, doors appearing where none had been before, leading to rooms that felt both ancient and newly formed. It was as if the house was rearranging itself, guiding them or perhaps trapping them. They found it at the end of a narrow, forgotten passage, hidden behind a heavy oak door that seemed to blend seamlessly with the wall paneling. David's study. The air inside was thick and stagnant, heavy with the scent of aged paper, dust, and something else, a faint metallic tang that raised the hairs on Michael's arms. Unlike the rest of the house, which felt frozen in time, this room pulsed with a different kind of energy, an almost manic intensity. Bookshelves crammed with esoteric texts lined the walls, their spines brittle and faded. Not just architectural plans or local history, but volumes on quantum mechanics, theoretical physics, ancient folklore, and even rudimentary wiring diagrams that looked disturbingly out of place. A large, ornate desk dominated the center of the room, littered with a chaotic jumble of notes, sketches, and what looked like half-finished electronic components. A powerful, unsettling hum emanated from a large cylindrical device on a workbench in the corner, its surface etched with strange symbols that seemed to glow faintly in the dim light filtering through the grimy windows. "What is all this?" Jessica whispered, her voice barely audible. Her eyes scanned the room, wide with a mixture of fear and morbid fascination. He wasn't just grieving Michael, he was obsessed. Michael picked up a thick, leather-bound journal from the desk. The cover was worn smooth, and the pages within were filled with David's frantic, looping handwriting. The initial entries were heartbreaking, chronicling the raw, visceral pain of losing Eleanor. He wrote about the silence in the house, the unbearable emptiness, the way every object seemed to mock him with her absence. But then the tone shifted. Day 73. The house, it's not just a house. It remembers. It holds echoes. I feel her here sometimes, a flicker in the periphery. Not a ghost, not exactly. More like a ripple in the fabric of reality itself. A resonance. Michael flipped further, the entries growing increasingly erratic, interspersed with complex equations and diagrams that looked like a madman's attempt to fuse a circuit board with a mystical sigil. Day 152. The neighbors. They're gone. All of them. Just like that. The whole street vanished. But the house it anchors, pulls, takes. Is this its nature? Or is it mine? My grief binding it, forcing it to manifest. Jessica gasped, her hand flying to her mouth. The missing street, the other houses, he knew about it. He was seeing it happen. Michael's finger traced a particular passage, his blood running cold. David's writing had devolved into a frantic scrawl here, almost illegible. Day 280. The temporal echoes are strengthening. I can almost touch her, but the resonance fades. It needs more stability, more anchors. The boundaries are thin here, so very thin. A tear in the veil. I can build something, a conduit, a perpetual loop, if I can just stabilize the field. Stabilize the field? Jessica repeated, her voice trembling. Her gaze fell upon the humming device in the corner, its strange symbols seeming to throb with a faint internal light. What does that even mean? It means, Michael said, his voice grim. He wasn't just observing the house's strange properties. He was trying to control them, to amplify them. He believed he could use this house, this anomaly, to bring Eleanor back. Or at least, to preserve her memory in a way that defied death itself. He continued to read, each word a hammer blow to their sanity. David's theory was chillingly clear. The house existed in a state of flux, in a pocket dimension that occasionally intersected with their own. He believed it was a place where time and space were malleable, where memories could become tangible, where the past could be brought into an eternal present. His ultimate goal was to create a stable, self-sustaining temporal loop, a perfect, unchanging reality within the house, where Eleanor would never truly be gone. But the house, in its defiance of natural laws, demanded a price. It needed energy, a constant influx of something, to maintain its fragile hold on this warped reality. And David, in his profound grief, had either discovered this truth or worse, had facilitated it. Day 412. The oscillations are violent. The anchors are failing. The energy drain, it's immense. I need more resonance. The street, the other houses, they provide it. Each memory, each life, a tiny spark. It's not enough. Not for her. Not for permanence. A terrifying realization dawned on Michael. The missing residents, the entire street, they weren't just victims of the house. David was using them. Or rather, the house was using them through David's obsession. Jessica recoiled, her face pale. You mean he was knowingly letting the house consume them? To fuel his experiments? To bring back Eleanor? He might have started by trying to understand the disappearances, then twisted it into a desperate solution, Michael speculated, his eyes darting between the journal and the humming device. He saw the house as a way to circumvent death, to create his own personal heaven for Eleanor. And if that heaven required the subtle, slow absorption of an entire neighborhood's existence, he might have justified it. The hum from the device intensified, a low thrumming that seemed to vibrate in their bones, not just their ears. Dust motes danced in the air, caught in the strange energy emanating from it. Michael flipped to the very last entry in the journal, the handwriting almost illegible, barely a whisper on the page. Asterisk day 500-something. It's almost ready. The resonance is stable. The loop it's forming. She's here. Feel her. But the anchor, it needs a final singular point. A core. To bind it all. To make it truly eternal. My purpose, it is clear. To be with her. Forever. In this place. This perfect, unchanging home. Asterisk. The words trailed off into a series of frantic, overlapping scribbles, ending with a single chilling symbol. A complex geometric pattern that seemed to pulse with the same faint light as the device. It was a symbol of binding, of endlessness, of a twisted eternity. They stared at the journal, at the device, at the room that was a monument to a father's deranged love. David hadn't just lost Eleanor. He had tried to rebuild her, to create a private universe where she could exist forever. And he had used the very fabric of reality, and perhaps the lives of others, to do it. But the most terrifying implication was yet to come. If David had succeeded in creating this perpetual loop, if he had become the final singular point to anchor it all, then he wasn't just a ghost. He was something far more insidious. He was an integral part of the house, a consciousness woven into its very structure, forever trapped with his resurrected memory of Eleanor. The hum of the device grew louder, more insistent, and the air around them felt suddenly heavy, charged with an unseen presence. They weren't alone. David was here. Not as a spirit, but as the very architect of this nightmare, eternally maintaining his warped reality, and they, Michael and Jessica, had just stumbled into the heart of his creation. The chilling realization settled over Michael and Jessica like a shroud woven from pure dread. David wasn't merely a tragic figure from the past, his spirit haunting the halls of his former life. He was the house, or at least, the insidious force that willed it into being, every twisted corridor, every flickering shadow, a direct extension of his fractured mind. They weren't in a haunted house, they were trapped within a living nightmare, perpetually maintained by a consciousness that refused to let go. Michael felt a cold sweat trickle down his spine, unrelated to the damp chill of the basement. The air, already thick with the scent of decay and dust, now seemed to press in on them, heavy and suffocating. Jessica's eyes, wide with a terror that mirrored his own, darted around the oppressive space. The faint hum, which they had initially dismissed as the house's aging infrastructure, now resonated with a deeper, more sinister frequency, a low thrum that vibrated in their bones, a silent affirmation of David's omnipresence. He's doing this," Jessica whispered, her voice barely audible above the internal tremor of the house. "He built this place not with bricks and mortar but with his will. With his grief." Michael's throat was dry. But how? How can someone do that? It defies everything. As if in response to his question, a soft, almost imperceptible shift occurred around them. The flickering light from Michael's phone seemed to momentarily dim, then brighten, casting distorted shadows that elongated and twisted with malicious intent. A faint, almost melodic sigh seemed to drift from the very walls, a sound laden with an ancient sorrow, yet laced with a possessive, almost predatory undertone. It was the sound of a memory, stretched thin and made solid, a lament turned into a prison. "He didn't just lose his family," Jessica continued, her gaze fixed on a distant, unseen point, as if she were seeing something beyond the physical realm. "He tried to rebuild them, to bring them back in some way. And this house, it's his attempt." The implication hung in the air, heavier than any physical weight. If David was trying to rebuild his family, what role did intruders play in his warped masterpiece? Were they merely obstacles to be disposed of, or perhaps components? Michael's stomach lurched. "We have to get out," Michael declared, his voice rough with urgency. He grabbed Jessica's arm, his grip firm. "Now, before whatever he's planning takes hold." They scrambled back towards the narrow, creaking stairs, their hearts hammering against their ribs. Each step felt like an immense effort, as if the very air resisted their ascent. The wooden treads groaned under their weight, more vehemently than before, a protest from the house itself. As they reached the top, Michael pushed open the basement door, revealing the familiar, yet now utterly alien, hallway of the main floor. But it wasn't quite the same. The hallway stretched on, seemingly longer than it had been moments ago. The ornate wallpaper with its faded floral patterns now seemed to ripple, the flowers twisting into grotesque, almost skeletal shapes before settling back into their benign design. The air grew colder, an unnatural chill that seeped into their bones, making their teeth chatter. They ran, their footsteps echoing unnaturally loud in the suddenly vast space. Michael led the way, his phone beam cutting through the gloom, searching for an exit, any exit. The front door. That was their only hope. They reached the living room, but the furniture had subtly rearranged itself. An armchair that had been by the fireplace now sat squarely in the middle of the room, facing the wall, as if a silent observer had simply turned its back on them. The fireplace itself, cold and empty moments ago, now emitted a faint, smoky scent, though no fire burned within. The door, Jessica gasped, pointing towards where the front door should be. But there was no door, only a solid, unbroken expanse of wallpapered wall. The doorway, with its intricate trim and brass handle, was gone, vanished without a trace, as if it had never existed. A wave of pure, unadulterated panic washed over Michael. He slammed his fist against the spot where the door had been, the impact sending a dull ache through his knuckles but yielding no give. It was solid, unyielding. "No, no, no," he muttered, his voice hoarse with disbelief. "It was just here. We walked through it." A low, guttural chuckle seemed to reverberate from the very floorboards beneath their feet, a sound that was both ancient and deeply personal, as if David himself was enjoying their terror. It was not a physical sound, but one that resonated directly in their minds, a chilling whisper of triumph. "He's playing with us," Jessica whimpered, clutching Michael's arm. Her eyes were wide with a desperate understanding. "He knows we know. He doesn't want us to leave." Michael spun around, his phone beam sweeping frantically across the room. Every window was now boarded up from the inside, not with flimsy planks, but with thick dark wood that looked centuries old, nailed shut with heavy rusted spikes. The house had sealed itself. They were truly trapped within David's creation. "We have to find the source," Michael declared, his mind racing, trying to find a logical path through the illogical. "There has to be something keeping this going. Some artifact, some central point of his power." Jessica nodded, her fear giving way to a grim determination. "The journals. They mentioned his obsession, his attempts to bring them back. Maybe there's more in them, or something he used." They moved through the house, each room seemingly more distorted than the last. The kitchen, once mundane, now had a single flickering gas lamp hanging from the ceiling, casting long dancing shadows that made the cutlery on the counter gleam menacingly. The air here was thick with the faint metallic scent of blood, a phantom odor that curled around them, unsettling and visceral. Michael instinctively recoiled, his hand flying to his mouth to stifle a cough. The hallway leading to the bedrooms had grown even longer, the perspective warped, making the far end seem to recede as they approached, like a cruel optical illusion. They passed the same portrait of David's family multiple times, each time the faces in the painting seeming to shift, their smiles growing wider, more unsettling, their eyes following Michael and Jessica with an unnerving intensity. As they finally reached what they recognized as the master bedroom, the door, which had been ajar, now stood wide open, revealing a scene that made Michael's blood run cold. The room was bathed in a soft, ethereal glow, emanating from nowhere in particular. In the center, meticulously arranged, was a child's rocking horse, still and silent. Beside it, a small, worn doll lay on a miniature bed, its porcelain eyes staring blankly at the ceiling. And on the bedside table, an open journal, its pages brittle and yellowed, lay illuminated by the faint glow. This was more than just a memory. This was a shrine. Michael approached the journal with extreme caution, his phone light now seeming superfluous in the strange glow. As he peered over Jessica's shoulder, his eyes scanned the faded handwriting. It was David's, increasingly erratic, spiraling into madness. The words spoke of his unbearable loss, his desperate yearning to see his wife, Sarah, and his children, Emily and Thomas, again. But then the entries took a darker turn. He wrote of experiments, of theories of temporal displacement, of blurring the lines between the living and the dead, of creating a space where time had no meaning, where his family could exist with him forever. One particular entry sent a shiver down Michael's spine, a passage scrawled in thick, almost violent strokes. Asterisk, they say grief is a wound that heals. They lie. Grief is a seed. It grows. It consumes. It demands. And my grief demanded a home. A sanctuary for what was lost. A place where they could never leave, and I, David, could forever be their guardian, their architect. Asterisk. Underneath this, a diagram was sketched, crude but disturbing. A blueprint of the house, but with strange symbols drawn at key points, the foundation, the hearth, the children's room. And at the very center, where the basement would be, a larger, more complex symbol, radiating lines outward like a spiderweb. Jessica's finger trembled as she traced one of the symbols. These are not just drawings. These are sigils. He was using some kind of ritual magic to bind this place, to bind his family here. Suddenly, the ethereal glow in the room intensified, pulsing with a slow, deliberate rhythm, like a monstrous heart. The rocking horse began to sway gently, back and forth, without any visible touch. The doll on the bed seemed to turn its head slightly, its vacant eyes now seeming to stare directly at them. And then, from the corners of the room, faint, translucent figures began to materialize. A woman, her face etched with a profound sadness, her eyes hollow, but with a faint, familiar resemblance to the woman in the portrait. Two children, a boy and a girl, their forms flickering like old film. Their laughter a ghostly echo that raised the hairs on Michael's arms. Sarah, Emily, Thomas, they were here. David had done it. He had brought them back. But they were not alive. They were echoes, prisoners of his grief, bound to this twisted reality. And their presence, though ethereal, was terrifyingly real. The air grew heavy with an unimaginable sorrow, mixed with a suffocating sense of entrapment. These weren't benevolent spirits. These were reflections of David's madness, eternally replaying their existence within his self-made prison. And as Michael looked into their spectral eyes, he saw not anger or malice, but an infinite, desperate emptiness, a plea for release. A low, possessive murmur filled the room, not a voice but a feeling, a thought projected directly into their minds. Asterisk, my family, my home. You are intruders. You disturb the peace. And for that you will stay. Asterisk. The words resonated with the weight of David's entire being, his obsession, his undying will. Michael and Jessica were not just trapped in a house. They were trapped within a mind, a reality constructed by a powerful, deranged individual who had twisted the very fabric of existence to serve his endless sorrow. They were now part of his collection, his unwanted guests in a house that didn't exist, maintained by a man who refused to let his past die. And as the spectral figures of Sarah, Emily, and Thomas slowly turned their hollow gazes towards them, Michael knew, with a horrifying certainty, that David had plans for his new additions to the family. The air in the spectral living room seemed to thicken, pressing down on Michael and Jessica, stealing the breath from their lungs. The hollow eyes of Sarah, Emily, and Thomas, devoid of light or life, fixed upon them with an unnerving intensity. It wasn't hatred or even anger, but a profound, chilling emptiness that mirrored the house itself. David, however, remained unervingly calm, a predatory smile slowly spreading across his face. He watched their terror, relishing it. Additions, Jessica whispered, her voice barely audible, a fragile thread against the encroaching dread. Her hand found Michael's, squeezing with a desperate strength. David chuckled, a dry, rustling sound that seemed to emanate from the very walls. Oh yes. You see, a family needs to be complete. A mother, a father, children. My Sarah, she was always so worried about the children. And Emily, my sweet Emily, she loved to play. Thomas, always so curious, always exploring. They were perfect. And then the fire. His voice dropped, a genuine flicker of pain, quickly extinguished by something far more sinister. But I refused to let it end there. I refused to let them be forgotten. This house, it remembers. And I ensured they would never truly leave. He gestured vaguely at the spectral figures, who remained motionless, their gazes unwavering. They are here, bound to me, bound to this place. But they are incomplete. They lack the vibrancy, the spark of the living. And that, Michael, Jessica, is where you come in. Michael felt a cold dread seep into his bones, colder than any morgue he'd ever stood in. He had faced death countless times, but this was something beyond. This was a perversion of life, a mockery of the natural order. You can't, he choked out, trying to pull Jessica behind him, but the floor felt like it was adhering to his shoes. You can't just replace them. David's smile widened, revealing teeth that seemed too sharp, too white in the dim, shifting light. Replace? Oh no, not replace. Enhance. Complete. You see the fire. It took their physical forms, but their essence, their memory that remained, trapped. But I learned how to give it form again. A spectral form. And over the years I've perfected the process. I've learned how to bring others into the fold. To give their essence a new purpose. To become family. Jessica let out a small sob, tears streaming down her face. You're insane. We're not your family. We have our own lives. Had, David corrected, his voice losing its playful edge, becoming hard as granite. You had lives. Here you will have purpose. You will be part of something eternal. Something beautiful. My family forever reunited. Imagine Jessica, a life without end. Always here, always together. No more fear, no more loss. Only belonging. He took a step towards them, and the spectral figures of Sarah, Emily, and Thomas seemed to mirror his movement, their forms wavering like heat haze. Michael instinctively tried to back away, but the wall behind him was no longer a wall. It was a swirling vortex of shadows and indistinct shapes, a maw of darkness that promised to consume him. He spun around, pulling Jessica with him, trying to find an exit, a door, anything. But the living room was changing. The elegant furniture, the fireplace, the portraits on the wall. They were melting, distorting, their edges blurring into a shifting landscape of uncertainty. The floor beneath their feet felt like soft earth one moment, then cold, slick stone the next. The air grew heavy with the scent of old dust and something else, something metallic and faintly sweet, like forgotten blood. There's no escape, Michael, David's voice echoed, now seemingly coming from all directions at once, enveloping them. This house, it is an extension of my will. It is my sanctuary, my tomb, my kingdom, and you are my guest. Forever. He laughed again, and the sound reverberated through the very structure of the house, making the spectral figures shimmer and glow faintly. You see, Michael, when the fire took everything, it also gave me a gift. Connection. A way to bind souls. The stronger the emotional resonance, the easier the transition. And you too, your bond, your love. It's exquisite. It will make beautiful additions to my eternal family. Michael's mind raced, adrenaline flooding his system. He was an EMT trained to assess, to react, to save. But what could he save them from here? This wasn't a physical threat he could treat with bandages or CPR. This was something supernatural, something that defied all logic and medical understanding. Yet, his training demanded a solution, a way out. He scanned the shifting room, frantically searching for a pattern, a weakness, anything that wasn't under David's absolute control. He looked at the spectral figures again. Sarah, Emily, Thomas. Their eyes were empty, yes, but there was a faint, almost imperceptible tremor in their forms, a subtle wavering that was different from the house's general instability. Were they truly willing participants? Or were they just as trapped, just as much victims of David's twisted grief as Michael and Jessica were destined to be? They're not willing, are they? Michael yelled, his voice hoarse, trying to pierce through David's confident facade. They're not happy. They're just puppets. David's laughter died instantly. A flicker of something dark and dangerous crossed his face. Insolence. They are content. They are at peace. They are with me where they belong. No, Jessica cried, finding a surge of defiant strength. Look at them, David. They're empty shells. You didn't save them, you imprisoned them. You're torturing them, just like you're trying to torture us. The spectral figures of Sarah, Emily, and Thomas seemed to react to Jessica's words. Their forms rippled more violently, and a faint, almost inaudible whisper seemed to drift through the air. A collective sigh of sorrow and despair. It was barely there, a ghost of a sound, but it was enough to make David's eyes narrow to slits. Silence! David roared, and the house responded. The floor tilted violently, throwing Michael and Jessica off balance. The walls seemed to press inward, suffocating them. The spectral figures of his family recoiled slightly, as if struck. Michael caught Jessica, holding her tight as they stumbled. This was it. David was losing control, not of the house, but of his carefully constructed illusion of a happy, reunited family. Jessica's words had hit a nerve. If the spectral family wasn't truly content, if they were suffering, then David's power might not be as absolute as he claimed. There had to be a flaw, a crack in his spectral armor. He's lying to himself, Michael shouted over the rumbling of the house, hoping to reach the spectral family, hoping to give them some strength, some recognition. They don't want this. They want peace. Real peace. David's face contorted with rage, his features momentarily shifting, revealing glimpses of a skeletal grimace beneath the skin, a hint of the decay that truly held him. You know nothing of peace. You know nothing of loss. I brought them back. I saved them from oblivion. You condemned them. Jessica screamed, tears still flowing but now mixed with a fierce, desperate defiance. You condemned yourself. The house began to shatter around them, not physically but dimensionally. Walls dissolved into swirling mist, revealing glimpses of other rooms, other times, other terrifying possibilities. The spectral figures of Sarah, Emily, and Thomas were no longer just standing. They were thrashing, their forms twisting and elongating, their whispers growing louder, a cacophony of pain and protest. They were reaching out, not to Michael and Jessica, but as if trying to tear themselves free from an invisible bond. This was it. David's control was tethered to their suffering, to his denial. If they could break that denial, if they could give his family the strength to resist him, even in their spectral state, it might destabilize everything. Michael pulled Jessica forward, through a shimmering veil that had once been a wall. "Run!" he yelled, not knowing where they were going, but knowing they had to get away from David's immediate presence, from the epicenter of his rage and control. They burst into what looked like a spectral kitchen, a distorted echo of a domestic space. Pots and pans hung on invisible hooks, cutlery gleamed with a faint, ghostly light, and the scent of phantom cooking lingered in the air, a cruel parody of home. But this kitchen was also unstable, dissolving and reforming, the boundaries of reality fraying. Behind them, David's enraged roar reverberated, shaking the very foundations of the spectral house. "You will not defy me. You will become part of us. You will be family." The spectral figures of Sarah, Emily, and Thomas were now moving erratically, their forms flickering, almost transparent. They seemed to be following David, but their movements were agitated, desperate, like moths drawn to a destructive flame, yet fighting against the pull. They weren't chasing Michael and Jessica. They were manifestations of David's unraveling control. Michael knew they had bought themselves a moment, a precious few seconds of chaos. But the house was still David's. And David, in his fury, was more dangerous than ever. He was a cornered animal, fueled by grief and monstrous power, and he wouldn't let his new additions escape his twisted vision of a perfect family. The air crackled with his raw, untamed energy, promising an even more terrifying confrontation to come. They were running, but to what? And for how long could they outrun a ghost in his own spectral prison? The silence that followed David's roar was even more terrifying than the sound itself, a chilling prelude to the next inevitable act of his twisted play. The silence that followed David's roar was even more terrifying than the sound itself, a chilling prelude to the next inevitable act of his twisted play. It wasn't just an absence of sound. It was a vacuum, sucking the very air from Michael and Sarah's lungs, leaving them gasping in a sudden profound stillness. The oppressive quiet pressed in on them, a physical weight, making their own ragged breaths sound deafeningly loud in their ears. They stood frozen, backs pressed against the damp, cold wall of what felt like an endless corridor, eyes darting into the impenetrable shadows that now seemed to writhe with unseen menace. Then the world around them began to shift. Not slowly like a dream fading, but with a sickening lurch, as if the very foundations of reality were groaning under an immense, unseen pressure. The corridor walls rippled, the peeling wallpaper seeming to breathe, the patterns swirling into grotesque, fleeting faces. The air grew thick, heavy with the scent of dust, decay, and something else, something metallic and acrid, like burnt copper mixed with fear. A low hum vibrated through the floorboards, rising in pitch, a sound that burrowed directly into their skulls, rattling their teeth. "You can't run," David's voice echoed, not from any discernible direction, but from everywhere at once, a chilling whisper that seemed to originate from inside their own minds. "You can only experience." And then he was there. Not materializing in a flash, but simply being there, standing at the far end of the corridor, where moments before there had been only darkness. He looked different now. The kindly, tired man was gone, replaced by a figure whose eyes glowed with an unnerving, pale luminescence, a predatory glint in their depths. His posture was straighter, his presence radiating an ancient, terrible power that made Michael's blood run cold. It was the presence of a predator finally revealing its true form to cornered prey. "You fought well," David said, his voice now lower, smoother, devoid of the previous pretense of weariness. Better than most. A testament to your will. And your fear. He took a slow step forward, then another, his movements unnaturally fluid, almost gliding. The corridor seemed to stretch and distort with each step he took, widening, lengthening, making the distance between them simultaneously vast and impossibly small. Sarah let out a small, choked whimper, instinctively clutching Michael's arm. Her face was pale, her eyes wide with a terror that mirrored his own. They had faced fright before, but this was different. This was the raw, primal fear of being utterly at the mercy of something incomprehensible and malevolent. "What do you want?" Michael demanded, his voice trembling despite his best efforts to keep it steady. He pushed Sarah slightly behind him, a futile gesture, he knew, against a being like this, but an instinctual one. David stopped, perhaps 20 feet away, though the perspective was so warped it was impossible to tell for sure. A slow, chilling smile spread across his face, revealing teeth that seemed just a little too sharp, a little too numerous. "Want? I am. This place is. And you, my dear guests, are merely part of the experience." He gestured around at the shifting walls, the pulsating shadows. "This house is a living entity, a symphony of forgotten moments, of despair and longing. And I am its conductor, its heart, its memory." He seemed to swell, not physically but in presence, filling the entire corridor with an oppressive aura. "You remember your call, Michael, don't you? The house that didn't exist? It exists for me. And for those I invite in." He took another step, and the floor beneath Michael's feet seemed to warp, tilting precariously. "You came here to save a life, didn't you? Always the hero, the rescuer. But what if the life you're meant to save is your own? Or what if you're merely here to contribute to a life?" A horrifying realization began to dawn on Michael. "You feed on us, don't you?" he whispered, the words tasting like ash. "On our fear, our memories, our very essence." David's smile widened, a silent confirmation. A crude way to put it, but not entirely inaccurate. Think of it as an exchange. You give me what sustains this place, what fuels its reality, and in return, you get to understand, to truly feel. His eyes fixed on Michael, burning with an unnatural intensity. "You see, Michael, this isn't just a house. It's a collection, a repository of all the moments of terror, regret, and the desperate struggle for survival of everyone who has ever stepped across its threshold. And each new guest adds to its tapestry." He raised a hand, and the air around them shimmered. The walls of the corridor dissolved, not into nothingness, but into a dizzying kaleidoscope of fragmented images. A young woman crying silently in a dark corner, an old man clutching a faded photograph, a child's toy spinning endlessly in an empty room. These weren't mere illusions. They felt like echoes, memories imprinted on the very fabric of this place, each radiating a faint residual despair. "Each one of them," David murmured, his gaze sweeping over the spectral tableau, "believed they could escape. They tried to find a way out, to understand the rules. But the only rule here, Michael, is mine." He lowered his hand, and the corridor snapped back into place, though it felt colder, more desolate than before. "You, an EMT, are uniquely positioned to understand the fragility of life, the preciousness of the final breath, the desperate plea for help. All of it is here, in abundance." Sarah, who had been silent, her body rigid with fear, suddenly found her voice. "There has to be a way out. You can't just keep us here forever." Her voice was small, but it held a desperate defiance. David chuckled, a dry, rustling sound like dead leaves skittering across pavement. "Forever is a relative term, my dear. In this place, time is fluid, a suggestion. For some, it has been an eternity. For others, a fleeting moment. It all depends on how much you have to offer." His gaze lingered on Sarah, and for a terrifying second, Michael felt a surge of protectiveness, a primal urge to shield her from this entity's malicious intent. "What do you mean? How much you have to offer?" Michael pressed, trying desperately to find a crack in David's facade, a weakness, an explanation that made some twisted sense. David tilted his head, a gesture that was unsettlingly human, yet utterly alien. The deeper the fear, the stronger the despair, the more nourishing the essence. Some souls are like a trickle, quickly consumed. Others, like yours, Michael, are a deep well, full of a rich history, a desire to help, a capacity for profound empathy. And that, my friend, makes you a truly exquisite vintage. A wave of nausea washed over Michael. He wasn't just trapped. He was being harvested. This wasn't a ghost haunting a house. It was a parasitic entity, a connoisseur of human suffering, meticulously cultivating its prey. The house that doesn't exist was merely its hunting ground, its larder. "No," Michael breathed, shaking his head. "We won't let you. We won't give you anything." David's smile returned, colder than ever. "Oh, but you will. You already have. Every scream, every panicked breath, every desperate thought. It's all flowing into the house, strengthening its walls, solidifying its reality. My reality." He spread his arms wide, encompassing the entire impossible space. "This is my world, Michael. And in my world there is no escape, only transformation." With a sudden jarring shift, the corridor vanished. They were no longer in a confined space, but standing on a vast, featureless plain under a sky the color of bruised plums. In the distance, silhouetted against the ominous horizon, stood the house. But it wasn't the quaint two-story house they had first seen. It was a monstrous, sprawling edifice, a grotesque amalgamation of countless architectural styles, twisted and fused together, with towers that scraped the bruised sky and windows that glowed with a faint, malevolent light. It looked like a living, breathing nightmare, an impossible structure born from the collective anxieties of generations. "Behold," David announced, his voice booming across the desolate landscape, yet still intimately close, "the true nature of my domain, limitless, boundless, and utterly inescapable." He began to walk towards the monstrous house, his form growing larger, more ethereal with each step, until he was a towering, translucent figure, a godlike presence against the terrifying backdrop. "You will explore its depths. You will confront your deepest fears. And you will ultimately become a part of its eternal story." Michael felt a surge of adrenaline, cold and sharp. This wasn't just a psychological game anymore. This was a direct confrontation with an entity that commanded reality itself. The vastness of their prison, the sheer scale of David's power, pressed down on them, threatening to crush their spirits entirely. "We have to find a weakness," Michael said to Sarah, his voice low and urgent, trying to project a confidence he didn't feel. "There has to be one. Everything has a weakness." Sarah looked at the colossal, nightmarish house, then back at the receding, towering figure of David. Her eyes were filled with despair, but also a flicker of something else, a stubborn, defiant spark. "But where do we even begin? It's everything." David, though now far in the distance, seemed to hear her. His voice, though still booming, was tinged with a chilling amusement. "Begin where all journeys begin, my dear. At the threshold, and then you will delve deeper, into the heart of what you fear most." As he spoke, the ground beneath them began to rumble. Cracks appeared in the desolate plain, spreading rapidly like a spiderweb. From these fissures a viscous, dark liquid began to ooze, pooling around their feet. It smelled of stagnant water and something metallic, something vaguely reminiscent of blood. The monstrous house in the distance seemed to pulse, a slow, rhythmic beat echoing across the plain, a heartbeat of pure malevolence. "The house is calling." David's voice resonated one last time, a final terrifying pronouncement that seemed to vibrate through their very bones. "And you, my final, most prized additions, must answer. The game has truly begun." The ground beneath them gave way completely, and Michael and Sarah plunged into the darkness, the nauseating scent of decay filling their nostrils, the distant, monstrous heartbeat of the house growing louder, closer, threatening to consume them whole. They were falling, but to what? Into what new horror did David's twisted game now cast them? The answer, they knew, lay in the suffocating depths of the house that devoured souls. They plunged. The scream tore from Jessica's throat, a thin, desperate thread against the roaring wind that clawed at them. Michael gripped her tighter, the world a sickening blur of dark wood and shadowed plaster, twisting, turning, as if the very fabric of reality was being unspun around them. The sensation was less like falling through space and more like being compressed, squeezed through a narrow, unseen aperture, their bodies groaning under an immense, invisible pressure. Time stretched and warped, an eternity in a single terrifying instant, until with a sudden jarring lurch, the descent violently ceased. They landed, not with the splintering impact they expected, but on something yielding yet firm that seemed to absorb the shock. Michael gasped, air tearing into his lungs as he disentangled himself from Jessica, who lay sprawled beside him, dazed but thankfully moving. The roar had subsided, replaced by a profound, echoing silence that pressed in on their ears, thick and unnatural. This new space was unlike anything they had ever witnessed. It was vast, cavernous, yet utterly devoid of natural light. Instead, an ethereal, pulsating glow emanated from the very air itself, casting long, shifting shadows that danced like phantoms across surfaces that seemed to be made of solidified darkness. The floor beneath them felt like polished obsidian, cold and smooth, reflecting the strange light in distorted streaks. Above, the ceiling was impossibly high, dissolving into an inky blackness that seemed to swallow the light whole. There were no walls, not in the traditional sense, but rather a series of massive, arching structures that curved into the darkness, resembling the skeletal ribs of some colossal, petrified beast. And everywhere, etched into the dark, reflective surfaces, were patterns intricate, swirling mandalas that pulsed faintly with the same ghostly luminescence, like a vast cosmic circuit board. And there, standing several yards away, perfectly still, was David. His clothes were unruffled, his expression serene, almost beatific, as if he had simply stepped into this impossible realm rather than fallen into it. "Welcome," David's voice echoed, oddly calm in the vast space, the sound resonating with a strange, harmonic quality that vibrated in Michael's chest. "To the heart of it all. To the place that isn't a place. The house that doesn't exist because it exists everywhere." Jessica struggled to sit up, her eyes wide with terror and incomprehension. What is this place, David? What have you done?" David took a slow, deliberate step forward, the strange light reflecting in his eyes, making them seem bottomless. "This, Jessica, is a nexus, a confluence of despair and yearning. It is not built with brick and mortar, but forged from the deepest, most agonizing human emotions. Grief, loss, desperation, the profound desire to find something that is irrevocably gone." Michael pushed himself to his feet, his muscles screaming in protest, his mind reeling. "You're insane. This isn't real. We're still in the house, aren't we? This is some trick." David chuckled, a soft, dry sound that seemed to shiver through the cavern. "Oh, it's real, Michael. More real than anything you've ever known. And yes, you are still in the house. You simply occupy a deeper, more fundamental aspect of its existence. The house you knew upstairs was merely a facade, a lure, a manifestation tailored to draw in those it seeks." "It seeks," Jessica whispered, clutching Michael's arm, her knuckles white. "Indeed," David confirmed, his gaze sweeping over the vast, alien landscape around them. "It senses, it calls, it feeds. It latches onto individuals, radiating strong emotional signals. The initial call, Michael, the one that pulled you to the address that wasn't there. That was the house reaching out. Your empathy, your unwavering determination to help a child in distress, to find a lost soul, that made you a perfect anchor." Michael felt a chill colder than any fear he'd ever known. "An anchor? What are you talking about?" "I was an anchor once," David said, his voice laced with a subtle, ancient weariness. "Years ago, drawn in by my own despair after I lost my family in a tragedy. I searched for answers, for solace, for anything to fill the void. And this place found me. It promised understanding, a connection to what I'd lost. But it delivers only absorption. The shadows, the whispers, the children's voices," Jessica stammered, piecing together the horrifying puzzle. "Those were other people? Remnants," David corrected, a flicker of something akin to pity in his eyes. "Echoes. Their despair, their unfulfilled longing became part of the house. Fuel. It consumes the living, but it retains the essence of their sorrow, their fear. It grows stronger with every soul it draws in, every hope it crushes." "And you've been trapped here all this time?" Michael asked, a terrible understanding dawning on him. "You're not trying to help us, are you? You're trying to escape." David's smile was thin, mirthless. "Precisely. I've spent years navigating its labyrinthine emotional currents, understanding its patterns, its needs. It is a parasitic entity, existing between dimensions, manifesting in yours through a psychic tether. And that tether, that anchor, must be a living consciousness. Someone to ground it, to maintain its form in your reality. Without one, it dissipates, yes, but it also drags its current anchor into an unbearable void. A true non-existence. I've learned how to sever that link for myself. How to pass the burden." Jessica gasped, her eyes darting between Michael and David. "You mean you want us to take your place? To be the next anchor? You were drawn in together," David observed, his gaze fixed on them, cold and calculating. Your emotional connection, the shared trauma, the desperate hope you still cling to, it makes you ideal. A dual anchor. Stronger, more stable. It will ground the house more firmly than I ever could alone, giving me the window I need to finally break free. No, Michael said, his voice shaking but firm. We won't do it. We won't be your prisoners, your sacrifice. You have no choice, David replied, his voice losing its calm veneer, a flicker of genuine madness surfacing. The house has already chosen you. It has already begun the process. The fall, that was merely the final stage of induction. Your minds are already open, susceptible. I merely need to complete the transfer. He raised his hands and Michael noticed for the first time that David was holding something. A small, dark, intricately carved wooden box no bigger than his palm. It pulsed faintly with the same eerie light that filled the cavern. As David opened the box, a low guttural hum began to reverberate through the vast space, growing steadily, ominously louder. The patterns etched into the obsidian-like surfaces around them began to glow with increased intensity, the ethereal light shifting from a faint luminescence to a blinding, pulsating rhythm. The floor beneath them vibrated, a deep, unsettling tremor that traveled up their legs, through their spines, and into their very bones. The air grew heavy, thick with an invisible pressure that made it hard to breathe, hard to think. Michael felt a strange sensation, like an invisible force was tugging at his mind, pulling at the very edges of his consciousness, trying to unravel him from the inside out. Jessica clutched him, her terror palpable, her breath coming in ragged gasps. "What is happening?" she choked out, her voice barely audible above the rising hum. "The transfer," David announced, his voice now a triumphant shout that echoed wildly through the cavern. His eyes were wide, manic, fixed on Michael and Jessica. "The house is accepting its new caretakers. Your despair will become its foundation, your fears its walls, your lost hope its endless halls. And I will finally be free." The pulsing light intensified, blinding them for a moment. When Michael could see again, David was no longer standing several yards away. He was closer, much closer, his face a mask of desperate elation, holding the open box towards them. From within the box, a tendril of pure, shimmering darkness, impossibly dense yet ethereal, snaked out, reaching for them. It writhed and stretched, growing longer, faster, manifesting as a spectral, grasping hand. The hum became a deafening roar, a sound that seemed to tear at the fabric of reality itself. A primal scream tore from Michael's throat as the tendril of darkness lunged, not for their bodies but for their minds, for their very souls. It was a sensation of utter invasion, of something cold and alien trying to rip away his identity, to graft itself onto his innermost being. It was the house reaching out not to consume but to possess, to make them its new eternal anchors. The cavern around them seemed to twist and contort, the colossal rib-like structures groaning as if under immense strain. The intricate patterns on the ground flared, forming a blinding, inescapable circle around them. David's maniacal laughter pierced through the cacophony, a sound of pure, unadulterated triumph. Michael felt Jessica's grip on him weaken, her body going limp, her eyes rolling back. He fought against the invasive darkness, against the overwhelming power of the house, but it was like fighting an ocean. He was drowning, his consciousness flickering, threatening to extinguish. This wasn't merely death. It was something far worse. It was the end of himself, the beginning of an eternity as a living battery for a sentient void. The house was not just devouring souls, it was rewriting them, reshaping them into its own twisted image. And David, the architect of their doom, was about to walk away, leaving them to become a part of the house that never truly existed, a part of its silent, endless hunger. David felt it then, a profound, sickening lurch, not just in his stomach, but in the very core of his being. The house wasn't just consuming Michael and Jessica. It was reaching for him, a tendril of icy, ancient darkness probing the edges of his own identity. He saw Michael's face, contorted in a silent scream, his eyes still holding a flicker of recognition, a plea that tore through David's carefully constructed indifference. Jessica, too, her form wavering, her vibrant red hair fading to a dull, dusty crimson as if viewed through an ancient, grimy pane of glass. They were becoming less themselves, more it. The air around him thickened, pressing in, a palpable weight of forgotten memories and silent despair. He felt the house's intent, clear as a bell in the sudden, ringing silence that swallowed the screams he knew must be tearing from their throats. It wanted him not just as a meal, but as a monument, a brick in its impossible structure, a whisper in its eternal echo. It promised an end to his guilt, an end to his fear, an end to him. It was a seductive, terrifying offer, an oblivion that beckoned with the warmth of a grave. But then an image flashed through his mind, not of the house, not of his victims, but of a small sunlit room, a child's laugh, a memory he tried to bury under layers of ambition and self-preservation. It was a fleeting, almost forgotten piece of his own humanity, a shard of light in the encroaching darkness. And in that instant, a primal animalistic fear, far stronger than the house's subtle pull, surged through him. He didn't want oblivion. He wanted to live, even if it meant living with the weight of unspeakable horrors. With a guttural cry that ripped from his throat, David wrenched himself back, tearing free from the invisible tether that had begun to bind him. He stumbled, falling backward onto the porch, his hands scraping against the rough, splintered wood. The house recoiled, a gasp of ancient, frustrated hunger echoing in the sudden draft that swept across the porch, smelling of dust and decay and something profoundly wrong. He scrambled to his feet, not daring to look back, his heart a frantic drum against his ribs. He ran. He didn't know where he was going, only that he had to get away. He plunged into the overgrown wilderness, the thorny branches tearing at his clothes, scratching his skin, but he barely registered the pain. His mind was a maelstrom of terror and a desperate, burning need for distance, for light, for anything that wasn't that. He pushed through the dense foliage, the dying light of dusk painting the forest in shades of bruised purple and ominous gray. Every rustle of leaves, every snap of a twig, sent a jolt of ice through him, convinced the house was following, its impossible foundations shifting beneath the earth, its ancient hunger chasing him down. He ran until his lungs burned, until his legs ached with a fire he thought would consume him. He ran until he burst out of the tree line, onto a narrow, unpaved road, the familiar sight of asphalt a sudden, dizzying relief. He looked back, expecting to see the impossible house looming behind him, but there was nothing but a wall of dense, dark trees, silent and impenetrable. It was gone. Or rather, it was simply not there from this perspective. He understood then. The house wasn't just hidden. It existed in its own impossible space, revealing itself only to those it chose, or those who stumbled into its orbit. David collapsed by the roadside, gasping, shaking, his body racked with tremors. He felt hollowed out, as if a part of him had indeed been scraped away, leaving a raw, exposed nerve ending where his soul used to be. Michael and Jessica, their faces haunted him, not just their screams, but the quiet, desperate terror in their eyes as they dissolved into the house. He had seen it, felt it, been a part of it, and he had walked away. But had he truly walked away? As he lay there staring up at the darkening sky, a profound chill settled deep in his bones, colder than the night air. He felt a connection, a faint, insidious hum beneath his skin, like a parasite that had taken root. The house hadn't just consumed his victims. It had touched him, left an indelible mark. He was not free. He was simply outside, a broken witness, forever bound by what he had seen, what he had done. He was the keeper of its secret, a secret so monstrous, so impossible, that no one would ever believe him. He eventually found his way back to civilization, a ghost among the living. He tried to speak, to warn, to confess. He mumbled about a house that appeared and disappeared, about people who vanished, about a living, breathing entity that fed on souls. His words were met with pity, then concern, then outright dismissal. They saw a man suffering a breakdown, hallucinating, traumatized. He was diagnosed, medicated, institutionalized for a time. But in the quiet hours, in the sterile white walls of his room, the house was always there, a phantom presence in the corner of his mind, its silent hunger a constant thrum beneath his skin. Years passed. David became a recluse, a shadow of his former self. He spent his days poring over ancient texts, forgotten folklore, anything that might explain the impossible. He found fragments, whispers of places that defy geography, entities that feed on belief and despair. He understood then that the house was not merely a structure. It was a nexus, a wound in reality, an ancient, malevolent intelligence that had existed long before him, and would continue long after. It was an anomaly, a predator that used the mundane as bait, the distress signal as its lure. Meanwhile, back in the bustling world, life continued, oblivious to the silent terror lurking just beyond perception. Emily, the EMT, had moved on. The memory of Michael and that impossible call to a house that didn't exist still pricked at her sometimes, a bizarre anomaly in an otherwise logical career. She dismissed it as a prank, a glitch in the system, a shared hallucination brought on by stress and exhaustion. But a seed of unease had remained, a tiny persistent question mark in the back of her mind. She was older now, her hair streaked with silver, her movements a little slower, but her resolve was still as sharp. One late shift, a decade after that first call, the dispatcher's voice crackled through her radio, cutting through the weary silence of the ambulance. Unit 21, we have a priority 1. Male unconscious, possible cardiac arrest. Address is 472 Willow Creek Lane. Repeat, 472 Willow Creek Lane. Emily froze. The name of the street, the number. It hit her with the force of a physical blow. Willow Creek Lane. That impossible address. The one that didn't exist. The one where Michael had been dispatched all those years ago. Her partner, a young eager recruit named Alex, looked at her, sensing her sudden tension. "Everything all right, Em?" he asked, already starting the engine. Emily stared at the radio, her hand trembling slightly as she reached for the microphone. "Dispatch," she said, her voice surprisingly steady. "Can you confirm that address?" 472 Willow Creek Lane. "Affirmative, Unit 21. That's what's showing on our side. You got a problem with it?" The dispatcher replied, a hint of impatience in her tone. "A problem?" Emily felt a cold dread spread through her veins. It was happening again. The house, that impossible, hungry entity, was making another call. It was drawing someone else in. Michael. The memory of his kind eyes, his easy laugh flashed before her. He had been a good man, a dedicated EMT, and he had vanished. She looked at Alex, his face earnest, ready for action. He knew nothing of the house, nothing of the impossible calls, nothing of the silent, endless hunger that lurked in the forgotten corners of the world. He was just another responder, another potential victim, answering a call that should never have existed. "No problem, dispatch," Emily said, her voice a little too calm, a little too even. She put the microphone back in its cradle, her eyes fixed on the road ahead, seeing not the familiar city streets, but a winding, overgrown path leading to a place that defied all logic, a house that wasn't there, yet always was. She knew with a certainty that chilled her to the bone, that the call was a trap. She knew that 472 Willow Creek Lane wasn't just an address. It was a doorway, a hungry mouth. And she knew that somewhere, perhaps in the silent, echoing chambers of that impossible house, Michael and Jessica, and countless others, were still waiting, their identities slowly dissolving, their souls fueling the endless, silent hunger of the house that never truly existed. And she, the veteran EMT, was driving straight towards it, compelled by the very nature of her job, by the desperate plea of a phantom call to answer. The cycle had begun anew, and this time, she was closer than ever to becoming a part of its silent, endless hunger herself.